Good evening, folks. Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It is time for live reaction to Kilmarnock 1, Celtic 1 at Rugby Park. I'm joined tonight by Martin and Callum to go through the game. You know how the live format works. You can ask your questions in the live chat box below. If there's any good ones the day, we'll pick them out and we'll go through them. Martin, we've seen that movie a few times on a plastic surface, pitch the size of a cereal box, Kilmarnock sitting on their 18-yard line. And you could tell fairly on today that we just didn't quite have that nous to break them down. No,
we didn't from the start of the game. Throughout, we struggled to get in their box. Any shots that we had early on in the game and throughout the game were from quite far out. They set their stall out to defend and did that throughout the game, and we huffed and puffed, but didn't show enough creativity, didn't show enough urgency. Too often took them the simple pass, the wee short pass, and there just wasn't enough movement amongst the creative players today. So really disappointing overall to a man. They underperformed individually and collectively. So really bad day at the office.
Callum, fairly on, obviously we got the goal early. I think Edward done Broadfoot turned him, and it was Justice that Christie ended up putting that free kick in, by the way, because we were 3-on-3. I think Edward had got by Broadfoot and then we were in on goal, you would think, but Dicker just scythed them down. And it was speculative for Ryan Christie. You could say their keeper should do better, obviously, coming for that distance, but it was a good strike.
It was a great strike for Ryan Christie. Goalkeeper probably should have been saving it, to be fair, because I would want my goalkeeper to be saving that if it was against us. But after the goal, I felt it just went completely flat. We allowed Kilmarnock to push in. I thought Kilmarnock, for the first 10 minutes, were the better team. They looked the better team. We hadn't really settled yet. But usually you find that on these type of pitches. We don't settle. Great. I've never really known Celtic to have a good game on any of the plastic pitches. So we knew it was going to be a tough game. But after we got the goal, I kind of wanted to push on. Hopefully we could have maybe got the second. But as you say, you let Kilmarnock into the game. And when you do that, that's what happens. You get punished.
Martin, early on, and within the first 60, 90 seconds, Kabamba got through Julian. He was charging in goal. I think Ayer managed to recover it, but just for the first couple of minutes today, you could see that those defensive concerns, again, we've seen them a wee bit last week, but they went unpunished by Hamilton. But that combination of Julian and Ayer, when they're up against a physical presence, they just get unsettled very, very easily, don't they?
They do. As you see, that was an early indication that particular player was the star man for Kilmarnock today, and he was involved in the goal, which I'm sure we'll come to later. But that was an early sign, absolutely, and they both struggled. And I think part of it is a struggle with physical players, full stop. But I think they're also still, we've changed their formation a little bit from last year. Quite often we played the 3-5 as opposed to this year. The wing backs are pushing up. We're not quite sure whether we're playing 4 at the back or not, but both Taylor and Frimpong are pushing up. They're really keen to be offensive in the matches, and both Julian and Ayer are a bit unsure whether they're sitting in the middle or whether they're putting themselves out wide. And I think we're still getting used to that, and whether it's the right formation longer term or not, time will tell. But certainly today was a concern. And at home last week, at times we looked a bit vulnerable at the back, but it's far easier at home, isn't it? You're not on the plastic pitch, and but today was a worry from the word go. And as you see, that physicality proved to be our downfall later in the game.
Aye, absolutely. We've got a few comments coming in about the formation. That's something we can maybe get to later, because we did end up changing it when we made subs about midway through the second half. But Callum, there's nothing in the game for Kilmarnock. You can see they're just happy to surrender possession and camp on their 18-yard line. But Julian gets it all wrong for the goal. I mean, on about 3 counts, because he's too busy complaining that the balls went out for a throw-in, which lets Kabamba get a head start down the channel on him. The least he can do is block the ball out for a corner. But definitely. Kabamba skips inside him, and then the tug back is just... after he does it, he looks to the referee as if to say, like, he's about to tell him, no, it's no penalty. It's the most blatant penalty you'll ever see.
I think you're taught from an early age, play to the whistle. Simple, play to the whistle. And Julian never, and that's where Kabamba gets the lead on him. But as you say, then Scott Brown goes over and you're expecting 2 people to deal with the striker. And when he turns, there's only one way that he can go. It's run towards goal. And rather than fight for it, he just sticks his arm out and pulls the boy back, and the boy goes down. So it's, as you say, it's a stonewall penalty. It's so lazy defending. It's poor. And as you say, for the get-go, for the start of the game, first minute into it, Julian obviously mucks up with Kemamba and he gets one-on-one with the keeper, but obviously we recover. So that's two in the first 25 minutes where he absolutely struggles to compete with Kemamba. It's been a worry for a while with Julian. He doesn't cope well with physicality at all. You see it really in Dykes, especially on plastic pitches. Auchenpo with Hamilton Accies even last week, he did struggle. He's not really started the season greatly after scoring a no goal last week, and then obviously the display that he had today.
Aye, Martin, obviously centre half's a big position that we're looking to strengthen. We've lost Simunovic in there. We don't have a lot of depth at all. But first of all, on the goal, as Callum said there, it was just such a soft way to hand Kilmarnock an avenue back into the game.
It was a bit of jostling between the striker and Julian, and both probably thinking that they earned a free kick, but there was nothing much in it. And then of course Scott Brown arrives. Our wing back still further up the pitch. I wonder when he's going to arrive, but Scott Brown arrives to lend a hand. And often think in that situation, is it right or wrong to go the other side of the player? Because you almost force the player's hand to then, make their way into the box. So I did wonder whether Scott Brown should have came the same side of Julian or not. But he probably made the striker's mind up that he was going to move in that direction. And then of course once he was halfway past Julian felt that he had to try and stop him, because by that time he was on the byline. He was a couple of yards away from the goal, so he probably felt he had to do what he did. But as you said, Paul, it was an absolute stonewaller. So I thought Scott Brown maybe could and should have come the other side of him, and the point's been made already. But we should have been looking at the ball and trying to play it off the player, and maybe get a by kick or at least concede a corner at worst. But just felt like neither of our two players did enough in that situation. They were waiting on the opposition player to make up his mind, and of course he did, and he done the right thing, and rightly so earned a penalty. But very disappointing overall, the way we defended that.
Aye, 100%. I agree with points that both of you have made there. It was a debut for Barkas today, and before, I'm keen to get your thoughts on how he played, but he did not have a save to make. Callum Burke put the penalty away. It was in the side net. There's no very much he could do about that, but other than that, he did not have a save to make. I think he collected 2 or 3 crosses, and that was it.
You couldn't even judge him at all. He had nothing to do, and that's what's the more annoying part of it, that we've actually drawn this game, that he's had nothing to do. Kilmarnock have barely whopped the goalkeeper, and again it comes to our downfall, that we're the ones that let Kilmarnock into the game. And 2 games into the season, you just don't expect that. You expect Celtic just to keep chiseling the results out and really go for a strong push. 2 games in, we've already dropped points, which isn't great. And as you say, Barkas we had nothing to do with him. A couple of crosses was good. He was quick with the ball. Usually when we had Craig Gordon, he would always dilly-dally over the ball before passing it out. He looks quite quick with the ball, releasing the players to get up the park quite quick. But you can't really judge him, so we'll just need to wait and see.
Aye, as you say, he had nothing to do other than collect a couple of crosses besides the penalty. Martin, I don't know if I'm micro-analysing things here, right, but I've thought for a while that from attacking throw-ins, Celtic are no very good. There was a throw-in today. Greg Taylor, he took about 35 seconds, 40 seconds to throw the ball back into play. And I think James Forrest had made a movement for him and then just looked away. And we ended up throwing it to James Forrest, and then I think it took a ricochet and we ended up getting possession back. But that links me nicely to the fullbacks today, because they were brilliant last week, but both of them on either side struggled today.
You often don't get the same width in some of these away pitches as well, and that they don't get as much space and don't get as much time on the ball, get closed down quickly. And then when they're going forward again, the same issue exists. They've not got enough space, and quite often they came inside today rather than going wide. So struggled overall. You mentioned Forrest there. A lot of fans criticise Forrest week in, week out. He has improved the last few seasons. His goal to game ratio has improved significantly, and there's as many people got good things to say about him as bad. But he does get a lot of criticism. And sometimes in games like today, you can find that players such as Forrest, just using him as an example, can sometimes be found not wanting the ball. When the game's not going your way, they'd rather somebody else took possession of the ball, and they would just drift off and hopefully collect the pass thereafter. So I felt there was a bit of that going on today.
Absolutely.
And often when you win games, you find that when you're in possession, there's 2 or 3 players wanting the ball as opposed to one. And when there's one, it becomes far, far, far too predictable. And I thought that was often the case today. Even late on in the game, you're expecting to see loads and loads of urgency, or just looking out for the movement, and it wasn't there. You knew where the pass was going, and it was a short pass, far too predictable. But you need two or three options, and a team like Celtic should have 2 or 3 players demanding the ball at all times. That's where they get paid a wee bit extra money, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's a great point that you've made there, because getting into the second half, I actually wrote it in my notes, like, we need the big players to make a difference here. Edward was coming deep and trying to on the ball. Obviously, he struggled at times because we couldn't get in Kilmarnock's penalty area. He had very little touches in the final, inside their box, didn't get many chances. But we needed El Yunusi, we needed Forrest, we needed Christie to make something happen. And none of them could come up with Callum. And I think one of the only times today, I think something that we didn't do enough, when we get these defences, like low blocks sitting on their 18-yard line, we need somebody to dribble past somebody, drag somebody out of position. We need penetrative passes to break the lines. We didn't have any of that today. And Martin's touched on James Forrest there. About 78 minutes, he got in behind. And it was the only time we got the other side of Kilmarnock in the full second half, really. And by the time he got to the penalty area, it just fell apart, and that kind of summed up the day for us.
It was just too predictable. As you say, as Martin said, it was in front of Kilmarnock all day. That's their bread and butter. They love it when they can see it. And it was too out to Greg Taylor, then back into midfield, then out to Frimpong, and back into midfield, and it was constant. There wasn't somebody that could grab the ball, as you say, beat a man, and then all of a sudden somebody has to step out for the back for Kilmarnock, then leaves a space for maybe Edward to get into, and then that's when you can create a chance. It just never happened today at all. I feel as if in that situation we missed Tom Rogic massively. I think he's the player that can be in that 10 role. He's the one at the club that can just open that door and slide either somebody in or have a magic feet and just get into that position to then lay somebody or have a shot. I think we missed Tom Rogic absolutely massively. I felt Cham should have been on before he was brought on. I mean, 10 minutes is nowhere near enough time. I thought Brown was... he didn't do much at all today, but a lot of the team never done much, to be fair. But I just think maybe Cham should have been brought on earlier. Maybe make a little bit more quicker subs. I felt we were a wee bit slow to make these substitutions as well. So as you say, it was too predictable, far too slow. And I know obviously Kilmarnock changed the dynamics of the pitch. They brought it in. They also didn't water it. It's going to suit them down to a tee in this weather as well. But still, at that, we knew that before the game. So that's still our responsibility. As Martin says, you get paid big bucks. You've got to try and open these defences up, and we couldn't find it today.
Aye. See, the thing that sums up the urgency today, see in the 92nd minute, I think Bolly, McGregor and Aya kept the ball in a triangle for about 25 seconds in the left wing position. There was 30 seconds left. That just summed up the lack of urgency that we had today. There was no balls we had a few balls into the box in the second half, but they didn't find MD. But there was just no urgency for all three of them. With McGregor particularly, you expect that quality, but with 30 seconds left, they were just happy to pass the ball in a triangle because they couldn't see any options for passes, and they weren't willing to take a risk. Martin Callum's touched on a big talking point in team selection just now. We're getting a lot of comments in about it as well. Really splitting the fans just now about Olivier and Cham. He didn't come on until the 80th minute this afternoon. Do you think that's something that we're going to see this season, him and Christie sharing that position? And do you think we should be seeing more of Cham or earlier?
Yeah, the fans like him a lot. There was a period of time we thought maybe he was going to move on, he was going to go elsewhere, and there's still those rumours, and they're all hoping that he stays. He very rarely lets us down, and in some of the big games he's been sensational. So that's our biggest quandary in the team, isn't it? Because you've got Elyounoussi, you've got Christie, and then Cham. Forrest appears to keep his space, doesn't he? He very rarely starts on the bench or gets taken off, and Brown and McGregor are guaranteed their place as well. But the other three are all fighting for their places, and fans love Christie as well. And Elyounoussi we haven't seen enough of over a long enough period to say.
He's poor today.
He was very poor today, hardly featured. And he hasn't been around. I mean, he had that purple patch, didn't he, where he got a few goals, but he hasn't played that many games for the club yet, whereas Cham's been around a bit longer, and we can absolutely trust him. And the point Callum made earlier around a Rogic or an Cham and how they can change the games, I would give Cham. I'd give him a run in the game and the team. He's a big player. He's a big game player, and in games like today, you could do with him coming on. And the other point Callum made around could we have made the subs a bit earlier, because Paul and I, you and I were talking earlier on about you could see it very, very early on the way the game was going, and I don't think any of us felt confident that the tide was going to turn, and therefore why not make the substitutions a little bit earlier? I think it was 66 or 67 minutes when we made the subs, which a game is quite common to do at 60 minutes, isn't it? That tends to happen, but we were 6 or 7 minutes behind even doing that. So, I'd had Cham on today. I'd had him on a lot earlier than when we brought him on, definitely. And as you say, Elyounoussi was the obvious person to take off because he hadn't featured.
Absolutely. Callum, the one thing we can take from it, though, it's a long season. We can't have too many games like this, but it is a long season. We've dropped points at Rugby Park plenty of times in this 9 in a row run, so we've just got to go to St Mirren on Wednesday and get back to try and put a run of wins together.
Exactly, as you say, it's only the second game in as well, and I suppose you'd rather drop points at the start than at the end of the season, so it's not great, but as we go, we're going to St Mirren, try and get 3 points for that game, and even put more pressure obviously on Rangers that are above us, because they play later on the Wednesday night, so just even that wee bit of pressure just adds to it, because every game is going to be a pressure game, as you've seen today, but as you say, it's still plenty of games still to go, so no panic yet.
Aye, Martin, transfer window's open. We've not done too many deals yet. Do you think anything that we've seen today highlights positions that we need strengthened in? Obviously, we've touched on centre half already. You mentioned Forrest and keeping his place. We've got no competition for him.
No, I mean, there has been chat about us having strength and depth, but I'm not convinced that we have got a lot of strength and depth. I think our starting 11's pretty solid. They've got 4, 5 or 6 on the bench that would all start, and you wouldn't raise an eyebrow and you'd be quite comfortable that they're adequate replacements, but I'm not sure we've got much beyond the 4, 5 or 6. My biggest concern is the wing backs. The number of games they've played for the club is really small, and the replacements as well for those 2 players, they've not got a lot of experience playing in this league and playing for Celtic, so that's my greatest concern. The 2 that are being preferred to start are both youngsters. Played 15 or 20 games each for the club, and as I say, the two replacements are similar. They haven't featured a lot. So, whereas in the past during that 9 in a row run, we had really experienced fullbacks that had been there, and Lustig and Tierney had been there a long time, and they were 2 of our better players. Now we're relying on youngsters who are not used to that pressure environment and playing for the club and all that comes with it. What I would say they do bring is they bring ridiculous amount of enthusiasm, both of them, and really good offensive. But that's my biggest concern. And then you mentioned earlier on, Paul, the centre backs who don't have a lot of contingency in there. And of course, we lost a couple of defenders. Not saying they were necessarily the answer or guaranteed starters, but we let a couple of defenders go, and it feels like that's the area of the pitch that we need to improve in the most. Our starting midfield still a strong midfield, and our strongest subs are our midfielders, without a doubt. But at the back, I think we need to strengthen. I'm worried. Our primary replacement at the back would probably be play Beaton there, which isn't his natural position, but he does okay. Julian, I think sometimes he has let us down once or twice, but he is generally very composed, very relaxed. Sometimes feels like he could go up a gear, so I'm quite comfortable with him. And we need to keep higher. Of course, there's a risk that he'll go. And what's made me happy over the last years, you look at the last 10 years. That first 6 years, we were letting players go right, left, and centre. I think we lost 10 top players during that period, roughly. 10 players that you'd be really sad to see go. And in the last 4 years, it's been the opposite. And I think all that would have been down to Brendan Rodgers saying, I'm not hanging about if you're going to get rid of the best players. And the board stood by him, and hopefully they'll do the same with Neil. And we'll not get rid of the big players. But in the last 4 years, Armstrong, Dembele, who forced their hand, didn't they? And then Tierney. They're the only 3 really to have left in the last 4 years. So it's really important beyond signing players that we keep the best players. And I don't want to risk of losing a lot of those guys. I think there's 3 or 4. Eddie being the obvious one, and Cham, Aya. We need to hold on to those guys, but we also need to bring in another 2 or 3 that are going to be first team regulars, not just guys that sit on the bench. And there's 2 or 3 guys sitting on the bench that we brought in 2 or 3 years ago that haven't featured at all. And we didn't spend a small amount of money. We're spending 2 or 3 million on these guys and they've not featured. So we need to get guys that can come in and hit the ground running desperately. And in my opinion, it would be defensive players that we need most.
Aye, absolutely. I think we're getting linked with a lot of strikers, and I think Albion Ayeti, I think that deal might get done early on next week. But we're getting linked with hardly any defenders on the other hand. So that's definitely something that I think the club need to look at. And the sooner the better. We've got the qualifiers obviously starting the week after next. So we've got plenty of big games and fixtures coming up where we need to plug these gaps in the squad. That's all we've got time for today. Like the video, comment out your own thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on Tuesday for the build up to St Mirren during the week. Thank you.